Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Riga. Welcome to the National Library of Latvia. My name is Tomas Pildegovic. I work for Latvia's foreign minister. I work on security and societal resilience issues. And I'm also a reserve soldier in the Latvian army. It's a huge honor for me to be invited here by the State Employment Agency of Latvia. I have to confess, my only previous interaction with this agency was when I was unemployed between jobs, and now second interaction, I'm invited to your conference, so I think it's a big step up. It means something is going well, in my life. So, yeah, it's an honor to address you today at a conference with the overarching theme of defending the future. And one could say this theme is a touch dramatic, but I think it's actually very well placed, very well suited. To my mind immediately comes a remark we heard from Finnish President Stubb during his recent visit to Riga, where he gave an address at the Latvian Parliament, and he made this remark that nostalgia is not a strategy, and clinging on to a world that no longer exists can be costly and dangerous. And I think that that is a very kind of useful frame for us into which we can set today's discussions. So I think it is very suitable that this year's conference takes place in Riga, in Latvia, in the Baltics, on the eastern flank of the Euro-Atlantic community. Although I think, as even NATO SecGen Mr. Rutte recently remarked, we are all on the eastern flank these days. And really the security challenges, the need to build resilience, the need to raise preparedness, the need to boost our capacities, these are shared challenges, irrespective of whether you are in Latvia or Germany or Portugal or Turkey. So I would like to use this opportunity given to me to offer a perspective from the eastern flank on the geopolitical landscape and outline our three most pressing overarching lines of effort, which I hope can provide some grounding, some focus for the discussions to follow throughout the conference. So clearly over the past year, we have seen that Europe has continued to take greater ownership of European security and resilience, both out of necessity and out of the growing awareness of the magnitude of the challenges we face. Russia, of course, has continued its brutal war against Ukraine, losing another 280,000 troops this year, killed or wounded, bringing its total of casualties to over 1,117,000. On the other side of this bloody equation, Russia this year has only managed to conquer another 3,800 square kilometers of Ukraine. So this is less than 1% of Ukraine's territory in exchange for 280,000 casualties. At the same time, we see no indication that Russia is genuinely willing to reassess its war aims, that Russia is genuinely seeking peace. And of course, Putin has failed to meet his objectives through war. He has failed to destroy Ukraine. He has failed to erase it from the map or to wipe out Ukrainian language or culture. He has failed to break Allied unity in support of Ukraine. But he is now attempting to get what he failed to get through war, through peace negotiations. So that is why he continues to issue these unrealistic demands about Ukraine giving up control over the remaining, for instance, territories of Donbass, which includes these fortress cities that he has failed to conquer over the past years. At the same time, Russia, of course, is rearming. This year, it is spending 9% of GDP on its 9% of GDP on its military, and around 40% of its budget. So more than on pensions, more than on any other kind of welfare, Russia is fully geared its economy, its industry, its media, its church, its information space, all the vectors of the Russian state are geared towards war, which is why Russia will continue to pose the greatest long-term threat to not just the security of Latvia or Poland, but really of the entire Euro-Atlantic space. Second, we see that Russia is clearly provoking us and testing our resolve in new ways. The number of documented so-called hybrid attacks, although really there's nothing hybrid about them. They're very kinetic acts of sabotage. They're, kinetic physical attacks. There's nothing abstract about them anymore. The number of these attacks has increased fourfold from 2022 to 2023, and another 3 times from 2023 to 2024. And the trend we are seeing is that these attacks are becoming increasingly violent, increasingly risky and brazen, as seen in recent weeks by the events in Estonia, where we saw these dramatic airspace violations by Russian fighter jets, in Poland with Russian drones, in Denmark with Russian drones, in Romania. We've seen incidents of sabotage of undersea cables in the Baltic Sea. So I think, again, this region is exactly the right place to convene to discuss these sorts of issues. Cyber attacks, information operations, all of these methods have been tested in Europe over the past decades. And of course, all of these hybrid or non-conventional attacks are part of Russia's war doctrine, which aims to capture control of political systems, sow fear, undermine public trust in institutions, and thus assert control through non-violent means. And only then war comes as a last resort. So I think that is the crucial point here, is that in line with Russia's war doctrine, really we are all targets, irrespective of it's Moldova or Denmark. It's just the spectrum of the means that will be selected is different based on the target. So enough kind of admiring the problem, right? What to do about all of these mounting challenges. From our perspective, really the only sure path to both a lasting peace in Ukraine and sufficient investment in our own security, our own resilience, is peace through strength. And there are 3 pillars on this roadmap. The first one, of course, is strengthening our own security, making generational investments in our security and defense. As I'm sure all of you know, NATO allies agreed each to spend 5% of GDP on defense at the Hague summit, which is honestly something that would be unthinkable even 1 or 2 years ago. So we see that there is this newfound wave of political will. And by the way, Latvia and the Baltic states, Poland, will reach this target next year already. So while the Hague target is by 2035, in this region, there are no illusions. This target will be reached next year. And of course, this will not be easy, as you can ask some of the ministers and government representatives who were here before me and who will partake in these discussions. Of course, reaching such a high defense spending target already next year will pose a significant strain on the budget. It will pose a significant strain on social spending, on the welfare state, and so on. But there is uniform agreement in society that this is a kind of non-negotiable necessity, that without security, there can be no prosperity. Of course, this we can talk 2%, 3%, 5%. These are not, it's not about the numbers in the Excel sheets. It's about the very real capabilities that we need. In our case, it's of course learning from Ukraine's experience. So air defense, artillery, long-range fires, border security, drones. We have some representatives of our Latvian military industry here, so she will be the right person to consult more in depth. But of course also personnel. And that is, I think, where your conference very much comes in. Of course, we know the challenges from the European experience, that actually money alone, spending alone, does not make us safer. Fragmentation, duplication, failure to plan, failure to develop stuff together, failure to procure systems together. This is the kind of range of problems that continues to plague the mission of building a common European security and defense architecture. Also, in response to Russia's non-conventional attacks in the region, we've seen NATO launch 2 missions here. One, Baltic Sentry in the Baltic Sea, which has actually proven to be a very effective deterrence instrument. So we have seen that since NATO has established a presence in the Baltic Sea, no more incidents with the undersea cables have happened. So presence matters, and that is why we really value the Allied presence in this region, and why we take our responsibilities as a host nation very seriously. And that, again, means investing in bases, in infrastructure, in facilities, to ensure that Allied troops here have the opportunities to train and enhance interoperability. And the second mission, we think the same case will be in airspace. Eastern Sentry or Eastern Flank Watch is also a crucial deterrence measure, and a clear sign that we do not take the incidents such as the ones occurred in Estonia and Poland lightly, and that such continued action will have consequences. Another aspect of political will and investing in our own security concerns our energy independence. And just to illustrate, if in 2021 this country was importing 90% of its gas from Russia, then by 2023 it was 0%. This transition, of course, is also, it does not come for free, it does not come cheaply, but it stems from the realization that Russia is not a reliable energy or security or really any kind of partner. And by continuing Russia's energy imports, we are directly feeding Putin's war machine, which is something that we really need to, this is a realization that we really need, that needs to come, needs to be fully implemented across Europe. Now the second main priority, and I will try to be more concise, is of course sustaining maximum pressure on Russia. We see that the Kremlin can only be forced into peace, and we must continue to constrain Russia's ability to finance this war. Of course, the Ukrainians are doing a good job sanctioning Russians themselves with their own strikes, with their own deep strike capability. But we must really step up our sanctions. Russia is vulnerable. The key indicators of the Russian economy are not positive, and do not believe the Kremlin disinformation operations working to tell you otherwise. Sanctions are working, and Russia is investing an immense amount of resources in information operations, influence operations, in an attempt to get these sanctions removed, including in this country. So of course, as I said, expanding sanctions, especially targeting Russia's energy, is key. That is the main vulnerability of the Russian economy. So last year, Russia's energy exports alone amounted to $250 billion. And from these exports, 70% are oil, 20% are gas, and 10% are coal. So we see the vulnerabilities that must be targeted. And the third main priority we have, of course, is support for Ukraine. War fatigue is not an issue in this country. Of course, people naturally are less inclined to follow the news or to receive some sort of regular updates. No, of course, nobody's following the developments on the front with enthusiasm or anything of the such. But the public support has remained strong and resilient because we understand that Ukraine is actually Europe's greatest security guarantee. It is Ukraine which is defending all of us, which is why we must ensure it has a capable and well-armed military, as well as an advanced domestic military industry. So Ukraine's allies, all of us, we must refocus our attention on helping Ukraine innovate and integrate new technologies at scale needed to stop Russia. And this, of course, I will not go into greater detail. I will leave that to Elina and others. But of course, Europe must not only increase its spending again, but also increase its own production capabilities and focus on speeding up design, testing, and scaling. So, my final point, I think I've spent enough time outlining this sort of geopolitical landscape, the challenges we face, the capabilities we require, the resources we require. But I've not touched on perhaps the most important of all, which is people, which is human capital, which is, of course, at the heart of the comprehensive state defense concept that we are deploying in this country and in others. If we are to succeed in sufficiently strengthening our deterrence and defense in the next decade and integrate lessons from Ukraine, we must make generational investments not only in weapons systems, but in our human capital. And this means both increasing our military personnel to ensure effective development and operational effectiveness of the armed forces, professional troops, reserve soldiers, National Guard, but also supporting civilian roles in the military. It also means promoting a wider culture of readiness within society, ensuring that all members understand their roles and responsibilities in addressing various threats. That this is not just a responsibility for the political elites, that this is not just a responsibility for the professional soldiers. And so I think your role is crucial in strengthening the defense sector and the work environment and opportunities for growth and development it provides. This, of course, includes enhancing workforce preparedness, aligning skills development with sector-specific needs, and supporting the reintegration into the labor market for service personnel, including those recovering from injuries and other veterans. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you 2 very productive days. I also hope you get to see a bit of the city, that you're not just stuck in this underground dungeon for 2 days. And I hope you forge new partnerships, make new acquaintances, exchange expertise, and above all, avoid reminiscing or clinging on to a world that no longer exists, but rather find practical solutions how we can move forward and act from a position of strength. Thank you.